Yeah, that ties back into, again, whenever you were talking about how hard it can be, kind of when you do have little things happen here and there. You literally you pick yourself up in the morning and you just go. Whether you were up for, the last 23 hours straight.
It's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter. You just do.
The same mindset I have when I'm editing videos all night or I'm training 10 people a day.
And that's interesting because you can compare me being a degenerate to also having a level of mental fortitude that a lot don't have. And that's an interesting take because most couldn't make that connection.
What were we kind of talking about? Can't remember. We were talking about something productive, weren't we?
We were talking about society and the way that they handle mental health and.
Do you want to talk about that note we made?
Yeah, what was that note?
That note, it was. I remember. So I was talking to you about how so I've been working out more than I usually have. Diet's been better than ever it has been. I'm lacking somewhat socially, but I'm not I don't feel good or bad. That's what I was telling you. It's I don't feel good or bad. Right. I'm ahead on my schoolwork. Everything's done. I'm good, but I'm I don't know. I wasn't feeling something was off.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and you were and I couldn't even tell. I couldn't go on from there. And you were because you what did you say? You were you're just.
It's we default to those self-destructive tendencies. And because we're so used to there being a problem there, we're uncomfortable with there not being a problem.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's little things like that.
It's hard when you're actually getting shit done. You're hitting the gym, you're getting your schoolwork done, you're hitting up the right people. It's what's gonna go wrong? Why isn't anything going wrong?
Right.
So then my mind defaults to shouldn't I be sad? Because that's how I always have been.
So that's the scary piece about life, kind of, right? Is that even in the best of times, this is why I think a lot of people default to drugs, and this can actually take me to a really interesting, place. Yeah. I think that a lot of people default to drugs because there are certain emotions and certain things that are incredibly difficult to feel, physically or present. Mentally, or it's incredibly difficult to be present. Mm-hmm. And it's also incredibly difficult to know what you want to do or what you necessarily expect from yourself long term, because most people aren't ever told what they should have expected of them or they're raised with food and a roof over their head, and maybe they learn a few things on the way and then they're sent off into the world.
Yeah, and most people don't know what they want, and maybe not even to want anything, but just to go on. So it's once you're just going, it's okay, I'm doing it. But again, you default back to what is easy.
And the defaulting back to what's easy is usually what's comfortable. And what's comfortable, if you didn't grow up in the small percentage of people who had a perfect fucking childhood, let's just say, when you grow up with a dysfunctional upbringing, which I think most people can relate to, the defaulting to what's comfortable is defaulting to those bad tendencies. And those bad tendencies, like in the note Jesse was kind of talking about, is it'll get so bad where if things are going so good, you'll even delude yourself into thinking there's something wrong just so you have something to justify, I need to be pissed off, or I need to be mad, or I need to default to those old ways. This is why drug addicts relapse.
Literally. This is why drug addicts relapse.
Yeah.
It's not just because they're addicted to a substance. Mm-hmm. You're addicted to a feeling. I was listening to Andrew Huberman.
Genius.
First of all, genius. First, genius. He had a...
Huberman.
Thank you, Andrew.
I know who that is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
he had on his podcast a woman, and I forget her name. I apologize. Anna something, I think was her name. And
Anna Jacobson?
No,
my bad. Sorry.
No,
that's the FBI fucking author
Anna
chick.
Jacobson.
Sorry.
He had Anna on, and she was an addiction, scientist or psychologist of some sort or whatever. And she had talked about a story how she had a patient one time, incredibly sad story, who was such an addict that she realized if she drank enough water, she could become delirious and essentially intoxicated. And she drank herself to death, essentially, with water.
With water?
Killed herself, basically, because she became a water addict. Because it was a feeling in her brain that she's releasing just from being delirious and being out of it, that her brain is releasing, dopamine to her in in this false sense. And she became addicted to that.
To chasing that high.
To chasing just the high in general. Yeah, it didn't matter what it was.
Yeah, that's what me and Mitch were talking about, just vices. Like, I think almost everyone has a vice. And you try to figure out, I mean, obviously not figure out, but like as you get older, it's kind of apparent what people's vices are. Right. You can kind of tell off the bat, kind of. Yeah. And as soon as you get to know people more, you're like, oh, that's your vice. That's what you do. That's what you do.
Of course.
But choosing the right vice.
Right.
Trying to transition to a vice that's more healthy, better for your mental health. That's the hard part.
And me and Jesse, the crux of that whole conversation was just that you don't have to be a perfect human. The problem is we live in a culture where one of the main vices is legit intoxicating yourself with poison. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that we live in a generation where at least the stigma associated and surrounding like even cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Is now really being understood with alcohol because again, when you know history,
it's starting to.
Because when you understand history, alcohol's been so prevalent in our history that for us to just now understand the worthlessness of it as a vice compared to other more healthy alternatives.
Yeah.
It's good that we're starting to realize it.
This is a big reason that I don't drink anymore.
It's because you're able to exactly because now even weed is destigmatized where we're able to understand the pros and cons from a health perspective of just weed versus alcohol.
Absolutely. And not that weed is an entirely safe vice.
No.
I'm not one of those people that says, oh, it's not dangerous at all. It certainly is.
Dangerous like any other.
Like anything else.
Like anything else.
But
it's the degree of danger that you're scaling and judging.
Having been someone who drank at an incredibly high level, like an unreasonable level.
Especially being in the military.
Absolutely.
Two military men you guys both being military men who both understand that not only, Mitch, vices, like I'm human, I need a vice, but when I'm in the military, I'm limited on the options of the vices I'm able to choose from.
Exactly, which almost creates a worse problem because those things that you can get away with and those things that are accepted in that environment.
Worse.
Actually, exactly. I was stationed in California for 3.5 years. I was in Alaska for give or take 6 months, but I was in California for 3.5 years.
Especially when weed was legal.
There was dispensary, 100% legal. I went to LA and I could have walked into a dispensary. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was get off work, go to the PX. If you didn't have booze from the night before, go to the big grocery store, go get booze. Normally,
this is the PX.
Normally a 30 rack.
Nice.
Normally a 30 rack of whatever cheap beer you're drinking. Me and a buddy would smack a 30 rack in a night. This is a Monday night. Didn't care. It wouldn't even go in the fridge. We would drink it so quick.
Next morning.
Work the next morning. Right. Then it got to a point where, I had a bad breakup like 2 years into the military or whatever. And I went on a binge before I even turned 21 where like for, I guess a couple months before I turned 21. And then for like 3 or 4 months after I turned 21, I was drinking a bottle of Crown a night. It was crazy. It was insane. And it's one of those things that looking back on now, I actually couldn't be happier that I experienced those things. Alcohol isn't the only thing I struggled with. It was the thing I struggled with the least probably because I liked it the least, frankly. But the fact that you can't have vices that may actually be, better
somewhat
for
beneficial
you,
also.
And actually somewhat beneficial as opposed to
like 100% poison.
We can drink our asses off. We can spend half the day in the smoke pit smoking 3/4 of a pack of cigarettes. We can put 15 energy drinks in our body in a day. We eat 5 scoops of pre-workout, and then you go home and maybe you want to stay up and party all night. So you do some cocaine with your buddy. Mm-hmm. Real thing. Very real thing. I got left bags of, over weekends, a couple different times from friends while I was in Adderall. Very easy
Which
to
is
get.
Literally meth.
Literally fucking methamphetamine.
Right.
Fucking meth.
Right.
Okay, don't do that shit.
Right.
It's the worst.
Look at
No,
that
I'm serious.
camera.
I'm looking at this camera.
You looking at that camera.
Stop looking at this camera. I'm on. Here we go. The worst drug of all time, okay? It's fucking methamphetamine. Don't do it. They're giving it to kids.
Yep.
And not that some children don't need some sort of ADD or ADHD medicine. They're getting children addicted to meth. I've done it. Tons of it. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Completely will deplete every good brain chemical that you ever thought you had. And it's just frankly dangerous, and it's so widely accepted that it's scary.
Let me ask you this though, like obviously it's like the culture of the military, but is it like, I mean, it's the culture, but it's like also what you're living in, like that even the small things you have to try to find joy in, even the 2 hours off a day.
That's why you get so close with everybody, right? Because the only thing you have to bond about is that's all it is. It's trauma bonding.
Yeah,
that's what the military is.
For sure.
You know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I find it so disingenuous to the sort of savages, especially if you're in the military, but like the sort of savages who can get so turned up and then still be able to go to work the next day. Like that,
80% of them.
Like that,
80% of them, Mitch.
That alone is such
80% of them.
That alone is such a savage quality that it's like you have the testicular fortitude to be able to, while hungover, brain throbbing, and head feeling like it's in a vice, being able to go through and maintain your day to day at a level of efficiency and optimization.
Let me tell you the secret, bro. You wake up the next morning,
and then you
take a shot of whatever you were drinking the night before.
It never stops.
You crush a half a line of Adderall, you bang that thing, and then you go get some energy drink, and you're on with your day. It's not. I'm talking. I'm kind of talking shit, but not really. That's kind of
you're being 100% honest.
Yeah.
I think. Like legit, this goes back to the accountability shit Jesse was talking about though. I, for the most part, like laughs and giggles, but like when it really boils down to it, it's like deep fucking down, the fact that you have the ability to be that much of a savage, most times we don't look at, for example, like I know people close and intimate in my family who were able to get off of like crack and shit. You know what I mean? Like they were able to get off hardcore drugs based off of the fortitude of their mind,
the sheer fucking
and the strength of their mind,
sheer
right?
Fucking will.
And so until you look at the strength for what it is, you get lost in thinking only the negative side of it. Only in the, bro, the only reason I'm able to go to work the next day is because we were still getting turned up and getting fucked up. It's like, no, there was also a level of accountability maintained.
To where I knew I had to do what I had to do regardless.
Whether it's because I'm going to get yelled at by the drill sergeant, whatever the excuse is, it's just the fact that you still do it.
Yeah, that ties back into, again, whenever you were talking about how hard it can be, kind of when you do have little things happen here and there. You literally pick yourself up in the morning and you just go. Whether you were up for, the last 23 hours straight.
It's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter. You just do.
The same mindset I have when I'm editing videos all night or I'm training 10 people a day.
And that's interesting because you can compare me being a degenerate to also having a level of mental fortitude that a lot don't have. And that's an interesting take because most couldn't make that connection.
It's finding that silver lining. Ali and our
That's
our
why
podcast.
I'm okay with talking about a lot of this. That's why I'm okay with talking about a lot of this.
Because you got through it, and you put your foot in front of the other and it got you through it, Right. And I think, as you, like I was thinking about these vices, it was, do you reflect more on more why you did it, why it was happening? And,
yes.
And you think about like the extra layers to it, like we were talking about earlier, and it really makes you think about why you, like, especially you talked about that breakup and all that, and why you went so heavy. Like I can relate to that.
Yeah, certainly.
And it's like the disassociating. It's like just trying to be someone else. It's all these layers and all these different things. Yeah.
Now, do you find yourself pulling back and being able to really evaluate it for what it was and use all of it as a massive learning experience?
Oh, for
That's
sure.
exactly where I've gone to. I have zero resentment. I have no anger. Nothing. All I've taken from it is that it was an experience in my life that I can take tools from that I want to bring with me, and I can throw away shitty shit that I hated that I did.
100%.
It's all about life building
and learning from those lessons, bro.
Have to.
Me and not to explicitly to caveat, like you talking about a breakup. Like when me and my girl get in arguments where it could be a breakup worthy argument, we legit have those moments where it's like, these are the necessary evils required for us to reach the heights of heaven. And I tell her, I'm like,
Bryce and I were just talking about
that. We call it the ugly cries, right? It's like we have to have these ugly cries for us to build enough of a solid foundation to build an Empire State Building on. Like we need the foundation to be so solid if we're really going to build something worth climbing.
Yeah.
And I swear to goodness, like again, it goes back into just your perspective on it. You guys, in the moment when you were in your most explicit drunken stupor, you in the moment aren't thinking about like, oh, this is going to be a good life lesson to learn from.
Yeah.
But look, when I got fired by those two Karens, there was less of a dwelling and a less of a delay of me being able to have that realization when the shittiness was happening. Like when that rock hit your window, you were way quicker to be able to be like, why the fuck did this rock hit my window? I guess I'm just going to have to deal with it.
This is
And
a great
learning from the shitty experience.
This is a
100%.
great lesson for even outside of the intimate relationship folks, because obviously lots of people are single as well and maybe haven't even had a super serious relationship.
Some new study where it's showing that more people are being single, and it makes sense based off of other studies without even getting into. But
we've talked, I think, a little bit about how religion may play into that, and some. That's a conversation we can definitely get into. Damn, sorry. Remind me where we were. Perfect. Yeah, it's great. I actually need a water too. Remind me where we were. There was a great point I was going to just make. Okay.
You were talking about how you don't respect women.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, in fact, that is what I said. I'm kidding.
Well, I'm very misandrist myself, so me being a man hater balances this equation.
Wow.
There we go. Look, you have to have all different perspectives in the room, don't you?
Misogyny is men hating women. Misandry is women hating men, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
so
good to know.
misandrists is the opposite of misogyny.
I feel like that's kind of misogynistic.
For me to explain that to men, it's
to call it
misandrist.
misandrist. To call it
I'm
misandrist.
dyslexic. I'm already confusing which one's which.
Anyway. So I was just going to say that, tying it back into kind of our roommate conversation that we were having earlier, it's a lesson that you can learn from more than just an intimate relationship.
Are you going to let the arguments break the foundation or build it?
Exactly. When you're in when you have 2 or 3 roommates and somebody doesn't, I don't know,
Clean the dishes.
Sure, there you go. Somebody
Vacuum
doesn't
the
clean the
floor.
dishes or vacuum the floor or whatever.
Playing PlayStation all night. You've been eating Cheetos. Vacuum the floor.
We have to, if we love each other, if we care about each other, we have to better one another. Because my thought in that is 5 years from now, when you have a wife,
I don't want you having these shitty habits.
or you have kids, my nieces and nephews, I don't want them learning the same shit.
Literally.
Do you think your wife or your husband is going to put up with this 10 years from now?
Literally.
Fucking no. Fucking no.
What does that tie in to the shit you said earlier is about being there and being accountable for people, whether they want you to or not. And if you truly care about somebody, you're going to be there in terms of the accountability that you hold for them, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, but it's like we talked about too, is that sometimes you find these relationships that you really can't hold them accountable.
You can't force that
You
accountability.
can't force that accountability. So then,
Yeah,
when
sometimes a relationship is much more nurturing than it is. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
it's like when you try to do that accountability type deal, it's like, oh, you get pushback or
It's the he's seen least as a prophet in his own home. That
yeah,
whole
they don't
saying.
want to. Yeah,
The closer you are to somebody, the least likely it is they're going to take your advice because they know you more intimately than anybody else that would take that advice from you. And they're like, who are you to give me this advice? I've seen you shit the bed.
Yeah.
How are you going to tell
And
me to
that's
be
true.
better?
And that's a
They're
fair
justified.
point to have.
for sure. But I just like it's the people that you open up to and you tell when you show them your deepest scars and when you were down, and for that not always to be heard in a light that is positive or it's judgmental, and then you don't want to do that anymore. You don't want to open up. You don't want to put yourself in that position,
Because now you're scarred by trying to share your scars
and
with
then
the
you
people
don't.
that
And,
you
yeah,
want to show
and then
them
you just
to.
shut down.
Well, that's why having people like us,
Of
I
course,
think,
of
is
course,
very
yeah.
important, because you can have those incredibly in-depth, emotional, very hard to have conversations, and then you could come from that and learn with these constructive criticisms
It makes
and
you
with
realize
these,
how hard it is to find too.
and how
Right.
important genuine fucking love and friendship is, man. It really does.